Welcome to For the District, the podcast for Jackson Madison County Schools. I'm Greg Hammond, Chief of Public Information for JMCSS. This morning, we're visiting with Principal Dr. Melinda Harris. She's the principal at Community Montessori, and we're going to tell you why this pre-K through 8 school is so popular and why it's now earning national recognition. Plus, we'll discover how Dr. Harris and her team balance the Montessori principles and history with new innovation for the benefit of CMS students. If you're new to the JMCSS podcast, this episode and previous episodes can be viewed right now on our YouTube channel, or you can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and radio731.com. Dr. Harris, welcome to the show.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm embarrassed. This is episode 72.
Yes.
And I cannot believe
Yes.
I haven't had you on the podcast
that
yet.
71 people were invited before me.
This is wild.
That's okay. We're here today.
We are here today.
We are.
And congratulations are in order
Yes.
because your volleyball team added a piece of hardware to the trophy case there.
Yes, they did. 2 years in a row, district champions.
Excuse me?
2 years in a row.
2 years in a row.
Yes.
And also, this was the first year that our middle school teams were connected to the middle school portion of TSSAA. And so your volleyball team actually competed very well, even up into the postseason,
Yes.
Competing at sectionals.
Yes.
So for a school that hasn't had sports very long, what's it like for you guys to experience this fast success?
Yeah, it's been amazing. We last year was our first year for athletics as Mavericks at Community Montessori. So we were really surprised at how quickly it went. We now have a full booster club. Parents are on board. Exciting times. It's been wonderful.
We're visiting with Dr. Melinda Harris. She's principal at Community Montessori. Now, let me stick to the script now.
Okay.
And so Tad, our producer, can vouch for me. Typically, the first question I ask my guests are, did you always know you wanted to work in education?
No,
Really?
I did not.
You hold a doctorate in education, so this will be a surprise to many people. Yes. So Dr. Melinda Harris was going to be...
an interior designer.
Really?
Yes.
So what happened there?
You know, it's interesting how our lives take a path, isn't it?
Very.
I actually have a full degree in design.
Really?
And worked a couple of years, and it just made the decision that I was in the wrong field.
So do you do some design work during the summers or anything like that?
Only for myself and my friends.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
But no, I went back to school, earned a degree in elementary education, went on for my master's at Vanderbilt, and my doctorate at Union University.
Dr. Harris, what was that light bulb moment for you in your career? Because you transitioned from interior design to education. When was this light bulb moment? Was it during student teaching? Was it before that? Were you like, wow, I'm where I'm supposed to be in terms of being in education?
Probably student teaching experience, yes.
Very cool.
Yes.
Very cool.
And the path has just opened the doors for me, which is interesting. I've never taught in a traditional school. My whole career has been in a Montessori school.
Really?
So when I went back to school at MTSU, newly married, no money, looking for a part-time job, and saw a little piece of paper on a bulletin board, after-school job at a Montessori school in Nashville. And I thought, well, that will work with my school hours. I can go to school and I can work in the after-school program. So I went to this Montessori school in Brentwood and worked every afternoon from 3 to 6 and managed their after-school program. And the principal came to me at one point and said, when you graduate, I want to hire you. And that was my first teaching job in a Montessori school. So that door opened for some odd reason.
Now, you attended a traditional elementary school.
Sure.
When you were doing your student teaching, what stood out to you about the Montessori model?
So when I was in the Montessori school working part-time, I just realized there was a significant difference in just the culture of the school, the individual approach to children. The multi-age classrooms was so different for me. And when she offered me that position, I immediately took it and taught school there for 7 years before moving to Jackson.
So we're visiting with Dr. Melinda Harris. She's principal at Community Montessori, multi-age classroom.
Yes.
That's one of the things,
Yes.
one of the ways the Montessori model differs from the traditional classroom. Explain that to
One of
folks
the
who don't
main
know what that
principles.
is.
So if you are in a true Montessori school, the classes will be multi-aged. And Dr. Montessori, who was an Italian physician who started the Montessori method, looked at the scientific approach to children and planes of development. So
Okay.
she looked at how children developed and the brain development. And really, when you look at that, it's very true to this day. Our classes are arranged first through third grade is together, fourth through sixth, and then seventh and eighth is together, and then pre-K and kindergarten. So you're looking at children who are working within a community or an environment that are basically in the same plane of development, but they can work together as a community. And older children can help younger children, and they can peer model.
So there's an embedded leadership opportunity for these students?
Absolutely.
Dr. Harris, news recently came out that you are going to be under the microscope.
Yes.
Now, you're already under the microscope in the community because Community Montessori, for many families, is certainly the place they want to be. Several of our schools have a waiting list, but in terms of the number of folks waiting to get in, there are a lot of people. No matter which pocket of the community in Jackson you visit, people know about Community Montessori. I'll say, just to give you some context, I was at the dentist office one day, and right before you get your teeth cleaned, and we're talking, and I was telling the dental assistant about early college high. They had not heard of it, but they knew about Community Montessori. Even for families who are homeschool or private school, folks know about Community Montessori. So you're already under the microscope, but you're about to be under the microscope for the next 3 years with the International Montessori Council.
Correct.
What is this 3-year certification, this microscope situation that's about to happen?
Okay. So this is a process called, it's an accreditation for our school.
Okay.
So the International Montessori Council is an international umbrella of Montessori schools through professional development, support of schools, teacher training. But they offer an accreditation, which is, a lot of schools you hear about SACS accreditation, different accreditations.
That's that's a lot of times you hear about that in the college level.
Absolutely. So this is a process where our school will go under a 3-year self-study. Professional development, consultants will be coming in, all teachers will need to be fully trained, the curriculum, all the things that make up this accreditation principles. We will be going through this 3-year process. And at the end, when it is complete, our school will be the first public Montessori accredited school in the nation.
Full stop.
Full stop.
Say that again?
The first public Montessori accredited school in the nation under IMC. Now, there are approximately 5,000 Montessori schools in the nation. About 500 of those are public. So a very small percentage are public. And of those 500, none at this point are accredited under IMC. So we will be the first.
This is groundbreaking stuff.
Yes. And the timing was perfect. This has been a goal for me, for our school, for many years. And with a process this intense, all stars had to be aligned. And we had the right staff, it was the right timing, and the right superintendent to support this huge work. So we're so excited.
I'm getting the rap from our producer, but let me tease this a little bit.
Sure.
If Community Montessori is considered the place to be by a diverse range of folks in Madison County, and you're rocking and rolling, you have one of the strongest brands in the state, why do you need accreditation? People might ask that.
Sure.
We're going to answer that question after this break. We're visiting with Dr. Melinda Harris. She's principal at Community Montessori School. But before we go to our timeout, we do want to remind folks, West Tennessee residents who are interested in job opportunities in education or operational support are encouraged to visit www.jmcss.org/jobs this month to explore career opportunities with Jackson, Madison County Schools. You'll hear more about that in a moment. You're listening to For the District. It's the podcast for Jackson, Madison County Schools on JJ 97.7 FM. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hey, guess what? We get to pick our clubs tomorrow at school. What should I pick?
What about picking 4-H?
That sounds like fun, but maybe I'll pick choir club or STEM club or nursing club or photography club.
You could say my kids are excited over all the options and opportunities offered by Jackson Madison County Schools. Our public schools offer more than 100 different clubs and activities for students.
Wait, I know. Ukulele club.
Oh boy, maybe let's stick to art or debate.
For options and opportunities, tuition free, choose Jackson Madison County Schools.
Welcome back to For the District. It's the podcast for Jackson Madison County Schools. I'm Greg Hammond, Chief of Public Information, and I am joined by a very special guest, Dr. Melinda Harris. She's principal at Community Montessori. And if you missed the first half of our conversation, you need to go back and listen. There was a very interesting conversation there during the first half of the show. But Dr. Harris, what we want to get into now is this 3-year process of accreditation. The International Montessori Council will be visiting, has already started,
Yes.
will be visiting Community Montessori to help you better balance this dynamic of the Montessori tradition with the innovation and requirements that come with public school.
Yes.
Can you kind of, number one, tell us, if you're doing so well and you've got one of the best brands in the state, people want to be at your school, why do you need to change anything? Why do you need this accreditation?
Well, oftentimes I think maybe people choose to be at our school but don't know why they choose to be at our school. And so we want to make sure that we do have a reputation of having a wonderful culture and a great school and high academic standards. But in the world of Montessori, we want to also make sure that we are keeping the bar raised and meeting all the standards of a true Montessori school. So when an accreditation team comes in, they first came last spring and spent a week spending the week with us, visiting classrooms to first see, are we even eligible? Like, are we even to the point of starting the process? And that was determined yes.
Okay.
And they came back this fall and spent another week during in-service with our staff, professional development, curriculum, all the things that they did with the teachers. So there are basic principles that have to be checked off, for lack of a better word, for accreditation. So they will be working with our staff for the next 3 years. We have weekly Zoom calls. We have consultants in Michigan and Florida. They meet with us weekly through Zoom calls, and then they are on site 2 weeks out of the school year.
This is, again, is a major undertaking when you think
Yes.
about your leadership team, but also many of your teachers are going through this process
Yes.
on top of the daily grind of running
Sure.
a pre-K through 8 school.
Right.
That's a commitment. That's
Yes,
a challenge.
and it was a commitment when they came last spring. We had a lot of conversations in-house first as a staff. Do we want to approach this? Do we want to go through this? Are we all on board for this? Because this is a huge commitment. But my feeling was that we do have this reputation, Greg, as a wonderful school. But there'll be a day when I won't be there. There'll be a day that Dr. King will not be here. We wanted to make sure that the work that's been put into the school over the last 30 plus years is secure and safe and protected. And this accreditation process will give us that so that we are maintaining this bar of excellence for many years to come.
We're visiting with Dr. Melinda Harris. She's principal at Community Montessori. And again, you're a pre-K through 8 school. And I think one of the things that attracts families to that school, similar to Rose Hill, a student can be on your campus from pre-K to 8th grade and then just make one more transition. So they'll get
Right.
through their entire school career, K-12, and only have to be in 2 buildings.
Right.
So I think that's one of the things that's attractive for that K-8 model. Letting folks know a little bit about Montessori, because you've been in it for 27 years. I have some experience in it. I've been blessed to have 2 kids go through that. Explaining the Montessori model, you've already talked about how there's this cohort of age groups, where in a traditional classroom, all the first grade kids are in the first grade classroom. That's not necessarily the case with Montessori, but then also this idea that students develop self-confidence. Students at some point have the ability to be self-directed. Again, let's for a moment sit on this for a moment and explain to parents what that Montessori model looks like.
Okay. So when you look at a classroom community of 3 grades, obviously the teacher's responsible for 3 grades. But the difference is the teacher is seen as a guide, not necessarily a director. So our experiences in school in a traditional model where the teacher's in the front, the teacher has the information, the teacher's giving the information. In a Montessori classroom, the children are being guided through their work, but expected to be able to work independently. They have independent work plans, so your work for the day may look very different than my work. So you could have a first grader working at a second grade level in certain subjects. You could have a third grader still pulling on some second grade skills. So that work is very individualized, but in turn, it allows our students to be independent learners, to be managing their own day, to be able to see a list of tasks and complete that. And I'm often asked, how do children transition when they go to high school? The goals and the preparation for life is that we are teaching our children that the learning is your responsibility. That when you go to high school and college, the biggest detriment sometimes to our students, even very high achieving students, is the organization. When is it due? When do I turn it in? Oh, I was late getting this. So we're trying to teach those skills from an early age, that you are the learner. It is your responsibility. We're going to guide and direct you, but we want the learning to be individualized.
We're visiting with Dr. Melinda Harris. She's principal at Community Montessori. So you described the Montessori setup for the student. How might this look different for the parent? How might a Montessori parent's obligations and expectations differ, if at all, to someone who may be in a traditional school?
Sure. Supporting our goals for children to be independent is one of the biggest things we struggle with and talk to parents about. Is if a child can do it for themselves, an adult should not intervene. And that's even as early as our pre-K students getting out of the car in the mornings. We're working on that independence piece. So we want our parents to understand that our goal is for their child to be an independent learner, an independent thinker, thinking outside the box. It's not quite as structured. So we need our parents to understand that piece as well. Most of the work, or a lot of the work, especially in pre-K through third grade, is done with hands-on manipulatives and materials. So parents aren't going to see as many papers coming home. So they have to trust that process, that this work is being accomplished at school, and it's not always going to have a product with it. Does that make sense?
Yes. So throughout the district, different schools have taglines or slogans. You think about JCM reopening, so their tagline is the rebirth. Southside's it's a great day to be a Hog Nation. Northside, particularly under Mr. Bridgman, was the strongest tribe. At Community Montessori, it's all about choosing peace. That's what you say. That's what people see when they're on your campus. And now I'm reminded, year after year, the group from Leadership Jackson, they'll have their education day.
Coming next week.
And so these business leaders from all different types of industry will visit your classroom, and so many of them are just blown away from what they see and what they hear. I remember being at Thelma Barker filming the school spotlight, and it was just kind of striking. It's like, I don't hear anybody. Just being very regimented, very calm, very organized. I've heard so many people say that about Community Montessori. This whole idea of choosing peace. What does it mean? What does it look like?
Okay. So peace does not mean no conflict, right?
Okay.
Peace means how we handle conflict. So we work very diligently to teach children conflict resolution from a very young age. It doesn't always require an adult to intervene. Sometimes children need to work their conflicts out. So we teach and model that. Even as young as kindergartners having a conflict with each other. So often as an adult, we want to come in and intervene or just say, Greg, you need to sit over here. rather than teaching the two children, tell the child what happened. How do we need to fix this? What can we do differently? And so we talk a lot about that. We have a student creed that we say every morning that talks about our mistakes are our best teachers and we will be fearless. And so our goal is to, again, equip a child to leave our environment to be prepared for life. And conflict is a part of life. And unfortunately, so many adults don't have those skills of sitting down and resolving a conflict peacefully and expressing concerns. And so if we can teach that at a young age, then they become comfortable with that, and it doesn't become something that they can't handle.
If we visit your school, what might we see in the hallway, and what could we possibly hear?
Well,
if we
hopefully you
visit your
see
school?
order.
Okay.
We talk about grace and courtesy. We talk about respect. And so for us, it's about how you treat each other, that we want our hallways to be orderly and calm and respectful and peaceful, because there's learning happening in every classroom. And so in any area of the building, whether it's the cafeteria or the hallways, those are teachable moments. And so we're trying to, again, teach our children those common social skills, social norms that sometimes are a lost art, honestly. And how to resolve conflict and how to treat each other.
I'm getting the rap from our producer, but I do want to, two things that come to mind. Community meetings.
Yes.
You all have these, and it's unique to your school. And then also, if someone hears this, there may be a student at Lane or Freed Hardeman or Union that's hearing this. They go, I want to be a Montessori teacher. Give them a little bit of advice about how that preparation might look different if they're planning to go the traditional route or the Montessori route. Those are two things I want to talk about when we come back from this break. We do want to remind our listeners, West Tennessee residents who are interested in job opportunities in education, so you could be a teacher or thinking about operational supports, bus drivers, cafeteria workers. Dr. Harris can vouch, it literally takes an entire team. We are encouraging you to visit jmcss.org/jobs this month to explore career opportunities with Jackson Madison County Schools. Again, we're visiting with Dr. Melinda Harris from Community Montessori School. You're listening to For the District. It's the podcast for JMCSS on JJ 97.7 FM. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hey, guess what? We get to pick our clubs tomorrow at school. What should I pick?
But what about picking 4-H?
That sounds like fun, but maybe I'll pick choir club or STEM club or nursing club or photography club.
You could say my kids are excited over all the options and opportunities offered by Jackson Madison County Schools. Our public schools offer more than 100 different clubs and activities for students.
Wait, I know. Ukulele club.
Oh boy, maybe let's stick to art or debate.
For options and opportunities, tuition free, choose Jackson Madison County Schools.
Welcome back to For the District, the podcast for Jackson Madison County Schools. This morning, we are visiting with Dr. Melinda Harris. She's the principal at Community Montessori, and Community Montessori is a pre-K through 8 school. So, Dr. Harris, you get to see a lot of kids and a lot of families in the span of a school year. Being a pre-K through 8 school, I'm sure that comes with a lot of excitement and also a lot of challenges. What is that like, pre-K through 8?
I'm going to give one example from this morning.
Sure.
So we use our older students as peer counselors, peer models. We have a group of students that helps every morning get our pre-K babies out of the car because they have to be signed out. I think Solomon Hammond is one of those helpers.
I think you might be.
So this morning we had a 4-year-old crying, did not want to get out of the car. And one of our older students, I think she's a 6th grader, they walk them all the way to class. So they get out of the car and they walk them to class. And he's holding her leg, crying all the way down the hallway. And it's just, I wanted to take a picture from the back because it's such a beautiful thing to watch from 4-year-old to 8th grade, how we can become such a family. And these older students are modeling and supporting and loving these little ones. And the little ones are looking up to the middle school students about, that's where I'll be. And so it's just beautiful to watch every day.
It is kind of funny. We'll be at Walmart or somewhere, and Solomon's like, hey, yeah, that's so-and-so.
Yes.
I was like, How do you know?
Yes.
Yeah. But
It's
so
precious.
that is pretty cool. Talking about community meetings, because that's something that is unique to Community Montessori. What is a community meeting? Why do you have it? What does it look like?
Okay. We actually started this. This is my third building. We've been
Right.
in 3 buildings, Parkview and Bemis, and this is our third location. We started this in Bemis. And it was just important that because we are pre-K through 8 and we have such a wide span, we wanted to come together as a family, periodically. We started weekly. We're now a little bit less, either twice a month. But we come together as a full community, and classes take turns presenting. So they'll present a skit or a song or something on the stage. And for us, there's several objectives. One, again, back to grace and courtesy and social norms, teaching children how to assemble. How do you go into an assembly hall peacefully and quietly and have a seat? How do you clap appropriately? How do you listen? And then also giving students that opportunity to present. How do you get on stage? Some children, that's a huge deal. And we don't think about that as adults, but to get up and hold a microphone and speak to your student body. And parents come, and it's wonderful. So just teaching them those skills of how to attend and listen and present is important.
We're visiting with Dr. Melinda Harris. She's principal at Community Montessori. Your teachers, someone may hear this conversation and think, wow, that's radically different. That's something I want to be involved in. That teacher preparation, particularly for Montessori,
Sure.
how does that look different than, say, a traditional teacher?
Yes, so there is specialized training, and that comes back to the accreditation piece. But before we finish accreditation, all teachers will have to have a Montessori certification. Most of ours do now, but we do still have some teachers being trained. So a Montessori certification is based on the teaching level that you choose. So your training may be different if you're first, second, third. Mine would be different for fourth, fifth, and sixth. It's about 450 hours. It's almost equivalent to a master's degree. It's about a 2 to 2.5 year process. Most of the time, our teachers don't come to me trained. It's very rare to find a Montessori trained teacher in Jackson, Tennessee. So most of the time, teachers will come to me in an interview process, interested in our school. They want to know more about it. They've been there for visits or have heard about our school. Typically, we will hire them for the first year, and they will work without the training under a lead teacher. Then if they decide this is absolutely where I want to be, then we commit to that training process.
And that's something you had to do.
Yes. Yes.
So this 3-year process of accreditation, 2026, 2027 will be the final year.
Yes.
I know there's a lot that has to happen between now and then, but what are just these few big things that come to your mind? And you mentioned all your teachers being
Right.
accredited. Are there any other significant milestones that come to your mind that are going to take place over this 3-year process?
Well, we have a weekly Zoom professional development meeting with our consultants, so that will be an ongoing process.
And let me interject.
Yes.
These consultants are from the International Montessori Council,
Correct.
which means they've observed the Montessori classrooms
All over the world.
all over the world.
All over the world. They're working right now. I think there's 60 plus schools, Jakarta, India, China, United States, the Philippines. There's schools all over the world that they are working with. But we will be the first public school in the nation to go through this process and become fully accredited under IMC.
So they're going to compare and contrast. You can glean from those experiences.
Absolutely. Our consultants that we're working with are in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and Florida, and so they Zoom in with us every week, and then they'll spend 2 weeks on site for the next 3 years working with professional development, just very intensive professional development with our teachers, as well as making sure all the curriculum is in place, student tracking, lesson planning, just every piece that you can consider. They're going to be working with our teachers. And our teachers have been fantastic. They are so excited. And I think anytime you have a culture of people working toward one specific mission, there's just a sense of unity right now and excitement for this. And we needed it, and we were excited about it.
We're visiting with Dr. Melinda Harris. She's principal at Community Montessori. You just used the term unity, sense of unity. Take the community behind the curtain for a minute.
Okay.
You've been under 8, 9 superintendents. For a moment, let's talk about Dr. Marlon King.
Okay.
He is a West Tennessee guy, but his experience is national. Bringing that context to Jackson and providing a unity for the leadership team, not just at the central office, but throughout our schools with our principals. How have you seen that sense of unity grow behind the scenes with the leadership between principals since Dr. King has been here?
I've never seen anything like it. The unity, and I tell him this all the time, but the weekly principals meetings have been life-changing as far as building that community of principals. It's not competitive. It's very supportive. Those are my friends. They're my family. They're my people. And there's so few, when you talk about, 26
25
schools in our district, and you think about there's 26 people out there that do the work that I do every day. That's a very small group of people that really knows what it means to be a building principal, and to know that you can pick up the phone and call. Dr. King has created that community among us, and he allows us to lead our schools individually. He knows that every school in this district has a very different culture, a very different climate, a very different demographic, a very different focus, and yet he allows us to lead as we need to lead, but then brings us together as a team. And it's to me, made the Jackson-Madison County school system something it hasn't been in a very long time.
October is National Principals Month. You are a school-based community leader. When you hear that, what does it mean to you? Because you are a school-based community leader. People think about your mayor, they think about your police chief, your fire chief. You are a school-based community leader, and you come in contact with hundreds of families in Madison County. When you hear the term school-based community leader, what comes to
Scary,
mind?
isn't it? I think that for me, and you mentioned a few minutes ago, Greg, about the branding of our school and the longevity of the success of our school. I feel like as a community or a school leader, your job every day is to build that culture. It doesn't matter what building we were in. We started at Parkview with 88 students, all neighborhood children, and this school has now grown to almost 700 children from all over Madison County. But what has remained the same is that culture and the expectations and the Montessori philosophy and those things that you, as a community leader, as a school leader, that has to be my daily focus. The little things that happen each day are managed, but the whole goal every day is to maintain that big picture culture of what you want your school to be like. No matter what building you're in, no matter what superintendent is in place, you have to maintain the course of what you want this school to be.
Kyle Spurgeon, the president of the Greater Jackson Chamber, he uses the term, he says, Jackson is the capital of rural West Tennessee. So given the reach of this particular radio station, folks all over West Tennessee will hear this conversation on Sunday morning. There are sure to be bus drivers who will hear this conversation. There are sure to be cafeteria workers who will hear this conversation. Teachers, principals, all over West Tennessee. Being one of the senior leaders in terms of education in West Tennessee, number one, what advice do you have for young principals? One. Then number two, what advice do you have for folks who just work in education? Whether it's a school support officer, whether it's a bus driver or a teacher's assistant. One, what advice, with 27 years of context, do you have for a young principal? And again, this conversation even goes outside of West Tennessee, given the reach of this radio station and this platform.
Well, one of the best advice I was given as a young principal was hire well, build your team of people that are committed to the job, because the work is too big to do alone. And so choosing the right people to be on your staff that are truly committed to your vision. And I say I don't mean me personally, but I mean the school's vision. What do you want that vision to be, and who needs to be on that mission with you? And then building the culture of that team, taking care of your people. The very first time I met Dr. King and we started having this type of a conversation, I remember us talking about our leadership styles were very similar in that we believe the first thing you do is you build your people, you build your culture, you take care of your people. The staff of Community Montessori are my family, and I love them dearly, and they come first. Their families come first. So I think you build that culture within your staff, and then nothing is impossible if you build the right team, and Dr. King has proven that. He's built a team of his principals, and now we are unified. Same thing for a school level. You build that team of people with a common vision and a mission and consistency. It can't be these pockets of brilliance in a building. It has to be the common vision.
And that's a lot of work.
And that is a lot of work. And I have been blessed enough to be at the same school for 27 years, where new principals, they're starting that building of a culture. That takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. And that's the success, I believe, of our school. Bus drivers, school support staff, anybody involved in a school, why are you there? What is your purpose? What is your mission? What is your vision? Do you love children? Because the heart of the child is the center of every decision we make. And we can get very wrapped up in all the micromanaging of things. And I tell teachers when they come to me and there's decisions to be made or tears are taking place, and what do? Go back and focus on the child. If the child's at the center of decision, then we will make the right decision. And so it's hard to do that sometimes in the whirlwind, but keeping your focus on why you're there.
Dr. Melinda Harris is principal at Community Montessori, and Community Montessori is in a 3-year window of accreditation with the IMC, the International Montessori Council. So this is a 3-year journey that will challenge you, will challenge your team. So number one, kudos to you for your desire to start this process and the work ahead, because when you read the articles from the National Montessori sites, there's some work involved.
Yes.
But we know in 2026, 2027, it will be well worth it.
Yes, and kudos to our school system, our district, Dr. King, for supporting this effort.
Dr. Harris, thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you.
You've been listening to For the District. It's the podcast for Jackson-Madison County Schools. If you're new to the podcast, you can check out this episode and previous episodes right now on our YouTube channel. You can also listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and radio731.com. We hope you have a great Sunday, an excellent week, and we'll see you next time.